Hello everyone, my name is John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and yes, I am indeed still alive. Sorry for not uploading really anything in the past 3 months or so. A lot of stuff happened. I moved, I've got my own place now, I'm in my first flat that's like really my own. So there was a lot of busy stuff that had to do with, moving into this place. Not everything is done yet, even, but I got a nice background, so that works fine. I'm working full time now. I have a full time, 40 hours a week job now, so you can imagine I'm almost every day, I'm just quite done with everything after 6 o'clock. Also, there was some family stuff, so I've been quite busy. But, of course, the one thing that brings me back finally is Doctor Who, the power of the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker's final episode as the 13th Doctor. And of course, I had to talk about it. So, this is going to be quite a rambling review, probably. I watched the episode fairly recently, as in, like, only couple of minutes and hours ago, so it's all still quite fresh. I'm just going to give you my thoughts on it. Obviously, there are going to be spoilers. I just want to talk about it, what I thought about the episode, maybe a bit about what I thought about Jodie Whittaker's era, and Chris Chibnall's era as a whole. Maybe I'm also going to do a separate video about it. We'll see. But for now, here are my rambly and totally subjective thoughts on the power of the Doctor. Overall, I had a lot of fun with this episode. I think it was a good finale and a good send-off for Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. It had some ups and downs, like the whole Chris Chibnall era, but overall, I had a lot of fun with it. What I think was really special about this episode were the performances, especially from Jodie Whittaker and Sacha Dhawan. The two Time Lords are at it again. So let's talk about Jodie Whittaker's final outing as the Doctor in this episode. I had so much fun watching her Doctor in this episode. It was really fun to see her interact with all the companions, new and former ones. The chemistry between the Doctor and Yas is on point in this episode. I think they've really managed to do a great job now here at the end, the final couple of episodes, to build this relationship between these two women. Because in the beginning, Yaz was one of the weakest characters, especially in like this TARDIS group that we had for this era. But now at the end of it, I'm really enjoying the chemistry these two have. You can tell that it's a deep friendship, it's a deep relationship, that they care for each other, that they love each other, that even though they might not be like in a full-on romantic relationship, you can tell they still deeply, deeply care about each other. And I love how you can see they're really used to one another by now. Yas gets to do a lot of stuff by herself because the Doctor just trusts her, and the Doctor also relies on her a lot. And I really liked seeing that. I'm going to talk about Dan a bit in a minute as well, because we don't really see too much of him, but I like the final interaction with him as well. I think he was a good companion for the Doctor. And I really enjoyed seeing Jodie Whittaker just bouncing off acting-wise with all the major characters in this episode. Like I said, especially like Yas, but also Ace and Tegan, who of course got to talk about in a minute. But it was wonderful to see how like a new incarnation of the Doctor now is interacting with former companions. And even though I wish we would have gotten a bit more between like 13 and the former companions, I still think it was quite nice to have them together in the room. There was some good energy going on there, and you could really tell that Jodie Whittaker's Doctor was like sort of still feeling guilty about what happened with them, but was still fond of seeing them. You could really feel that energy there. And something that I've always noticed and praised about Jodie Whittaker's Doctor is when she's by herself, when she's not necessarily with her companions, but just by herself going on adventures. I think she really shines, and I think you can see that again in this episode when she has like little interactions with other people who are not Yas or one of the former companions, like with the Dalek in the TARDIS, for example. I really think those are the moments when Jodie Whittaker shines. Also, like, of course, her final moments when before and as she regenerates, a moment which I'm gonna highlight in a minute as well. but I think Jodie Whittaker had a really good and strong performance in this episode. Also, especially alongside and with Sacha Dhawan as the Master. I think I'm at this point where Sacha Dhawan is my favorite incarnation of the Master. It's just so much fun to watch him play this part, because he has this sort of similar manic, devilish energy that John Sims' Master had, but it seems even more like deep-seated, like deep-rooted, and like downright unhinged. And I love that there is this touch of self-loathing in the Master, which you could really see in this episode. I love that. When, he forces the Doctor to regenerate, because you can tell he doesn't want to be himself. He wants to be the Doctor, and he even says when he has to change back that he doesn't want to go back to being himself. I love that. It's such an interesting and fascinating detail about this incarnation of the Master. And Sacha Dhawan, I'm mixing up actors at this point, and Sacha Dhawan is playing this brilliantly. He has this brilliant mix of, this crazy manic energy that most incarnations of the Master have, but also this sort of really dark, psychopathic, clever, scheming side, but also one that's just like having fun and bouncing around and just saying weird and silly things, but then immediately it's like threatening again and evil and downright unhinged. And it was fantastic. It was so wonderful to see this incarnation of the Master, and I think it was the best incarnation you could have for Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. I really loved seeing these two interact. I think it worked really, really well. The two characters and the two actors just bouncing off each other. It had such great energy, and I think it was a great theme that ran through the episode with the Master forcing the Doctor to regenerate. It was so much fun seeing the Master now pretending to be the Doctor, the outfit changes even, while at the same time the Doctor was sort of stuck in her subconscious, trying to figure out how she could come back. So overall, great performances. I love those. I think the characterization of the important characters, the characters like the Doctor, Yaz, and the Master were on point. And speaking of the Doctor, and like I just said, the Doctor meeting herself in her subconscious, the different incarnations of the Doctor made a comeback. I did not expect that. I had heard that, David Tennant was sort of gonna pop up in the episode, but then we get all the classic Doctors. And it just warmed my heart seeing them, especially since it's just them. It's just like the actors with their normal older faces now. There's no explanation given. We don't need one. It's just the actors doing their thing. And I love that. It was a fun way to play around with the regeneration or the forced regeneration that the Doctor was going through. It's always great to see former Doctors coming back, even if it's just for a short time, because this is how you do it. You bring them back for a short time. You don't overly rely on them. It gives you like a little emotional kick. It's a bit cheesy, but the episode doesn't over rely on it. And it was so much fun just seeing these actors sort of side by side and interacting with each other and bickering. When they're all in robes, but 8 of course isn't, and one of them's like, oh, there's always one. It was really fun seeing that, especially also in combination with the former companions. So we do have Tegan and Ace in this era. I'm more familiar with Tegan because I have watched the entire run of the 5th Doctor. I'm not as familiar with Ace yet. I've seen a couple of episodes with her and I really liked her, but I think Ace and Tegan is a great combo. Sort of like two really clever badass women from the classic era coming together, and figuring things out alongside Kate of Unit, of course. And it was just great to see that again for sort of a nostalgia's sake, but they don't solely rely on that, because the characters get to do their own thing. They don't even hang out that much with 13 or with the Doctor. But we do get 2 very sweet emotional moments, which I think work really well, and picked up on a theme that I think is very common with the Doctor, but maybe doesn't always get addressed, namely the companions that get left behind, maybe unexpectedly or without an explanation. And Ace and Tegan sort of get to have their goodbye with their doctors. So Tegan gets to talk to Five, which was really sweet, and which was even better was seeing Ace talking to the Professor again. And even though I might not have that big of a connection to that specific Classic Who era, I could still feel the emotion there, and I felt like it was really heartwarming in a way to see that and to know that she finally got that interaction with her incarnation of the Doctor. And it was just so sweet seeing like both of these Doctor companion couples coming back together again for one last time. You get just to be like, oh, this is nice, isn't it? It just was. It was wonderful how all the Classic Who era actors, companions and doctors were utilised in this episode. I had a lot of fun with it. Speaking of companions, let's cover Yaz and Dan as well, and also, surprise, Graham was in this as well. So I already talked a bit about Yaz. I quite enjoyed Yaz. Yaz has really grown on me over the past 1.5 series. Now, like I said, she started out as the weakest companion, but by now, like now at the end of this era, I think she's really grown to be a strong companion, a strong friend of the Doctor. And I really liked seeing her because you can tell that she is independent. She's sort of what I think Moffat wanted to do with Clara, but didn't really work for me. But it sort of works for me with Yaz, because Yaz gets to do a lot of stuff that the Doctor also does. Like she sort of figures out how to fly the TARDIS a bit. She goes off by herself, figuring things out. Goes on her own little investigation adventures or whatever. And she gets to sort of do Doctor stuff, but without trying to be the Doctor. And that's what I think worked about Yaz. And like I said, I really liked the relationship between her and the Doctor. It really came to fruition again in this episode. And I especially like towards the end when they both knew that it was about to end, and there's no like big speech or big goodbye, because Yaz doesn't want that. It's just the two women sitting on the roof of the TARDIS having ice cream, and then Yaz like leaves, and I thought it was sort of a really bittersweet but nice moment. And then the Doctor goes and says that she has to do this by herself and goes and regenerates. I thought it was really sweet, and I think that's also a good ending for Yaz. Speaking of good endings, let's talk about Dan for a second, because Dan just disappears right at the beginning of this episode, which was a bit unexpected, if I'm being honest. I thought, oh, okay, we're gonna say goodbye to him now at the beginning of the episode, but he's clearly gonna like make an appearance during the finale or something, or help the Doctor out in a sort of almost Deus Ex Machina moment kind of way, maybe. But that didn't happen. Dan just sort of says, well, I almost died. Don't want to do that again. And then he just leaves, which felt a bit sudden. I don't know. Because I liked Dan. I thought he was a really good companion to have, especially for the 13th Doctor. But the way he was written out at the beginning of this episode just felt a bit awkward. I don't know, because I would have liked to like see him reappear throughout the episode. I don't know. I thought it was going to happen, but it didn't, so it felt kind of awkward. Who did appear was Graham. Very unexpectedly. I mean, I'm not complaining. I like Graham. He was my favourite of like the original 3 companions for Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. Not quite sure what he's doing in this episode. I'm not even quite sure why he's here, because he doesn't really have a reason to be here, but he is. And like I said, I'm not going to complain about Graham. And we do get a very interesting and nice thing with Graham and all the other companions at the end, because there's sort of like a former companions help circle at the end, just like sort of group therapy of former companions of the Doctor, where Graham sort of starts speaking for the first time and everyone introduces himself. We see a lot of the old companions. So there's even Ian. Ian was there. I was just like, oh my god. It's just really sweet. Just really sweet. I think it's actually a really nice idea because, like I said, is a theme that doesn't... I think doesn't get addressed often enough, because the Doctor leaves so many companions behind, either unwillingly or under weird circumstances or whatever, and they have to live with it. The Doctor just like moves on and goes on their adventures, but the companions just have to live their lives now, knowing that, you know, the life in the TARDIS is possible, but they can't be with the Doctor any longer. So I think this kind of group therapy thing is actually quite a nice idea, and I thought that was very sweet. And now that because I literally just remembered that as I was talking about companions, Vinda is in this episode. Why? I didn't really get. I feel like he didn't do anything. He had like maybe one thing, and that was it. I didn't really get why he was here. I don't like. He didn't really have a reason to be there. I mean, I didn't mind him in like Flux in that series, but why was he in this episode? Like, I don't know. The overall story, I think, works. It had some ups and downs. It was a bit convoluted here and there, like when Tegan and Ace sort of start out with, oh, like all the paintings are missing and all the seismologists are missing. I'm like, where are we going? And the Doctor is like dealing with Daleks at the same time, but they're also Cybermen. And then the Master has his own like plan. It felt a bit convoluted here and there, like the classic Chibnall problem. There are like a lot of little things set up, but not all of them, or barely any of that, gets resolved by the end of the episode, which felt a bit weird. But I'm kind of glad that out of all the things they decided to like really focus on was the whole Master thing, forced regeneration thing, because like I said, the Master's just the most fun out of all of these characters and villains. So it was good that we sort of saw his plan through to the end. But yeah, like the episode sort of had sort of like ups and downs. Like occasionally it lost me a bit where I was on my phone and was like, what's happening? It's not really important right now. Okay, I'm just scrolling through my phone. But then something really exciting would happen. I was like, oh, okay, cool, attention, I'm paying attention. So I don't know, it was a bit of a mix, but overall I think it works. Especially as we get towards the regeneration bit, which I think they managed to do quite well, because I cried. And when regeneration makes me cry, you know you did it right. Because I liked Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, but she wasn't my favourite. She really wasn't, but I was sort of a bit worried going into this. I was like, okay, I usually get really emotional at regeneration episodes when the Doctor regenerates. I don't have that big of an attachment to the 13th Doctor, so is this really going to be like emotional for me? Because that's usually how I measure this, I don't know. But it actually was. It sort of started when we do see Yaz and the Doctor interact for one last time, and Yaz is like, I don't want to do goodbyes, and then they just sit on the roof of the TARDIS, eating ice cream, having a final, nice, quiet moment together, which I thought was really sweet, because this was sort of the core relationship for this Doctor. And I like that she then said that she has to do this bit by herself. There was no big speech. There was no like big shouting or screaming. There was no like crying. There was no like huge emotional fanfare. She just got into the TARDIS, went to a quiet spot where she was by herself. A shot that was, by the way, really nice. And she stood on the edge of that cliff, and then the regeneration starts and all the energy explodes out of her. It was a really good shot. And I thought it worked really well. Like, I was, like, not hardcore crying, but I was tearing up. I was like, this is a good finish. This is a good finale. I feel like I can say goodbye to this Doctor now. The emotions show that I did care for this Doctor. It shows that it was a good episode that managed to do what it wanted to do, namely giving this Doctor an emotional goodbye. They managed to do that. I cried a bit. So I thought that worked. That worked wonderfully for me. Which brings us to the final note of this episode. David Tennant just appearing out of nowhere as the new Regeneration. So, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not quite sure how I feel about this. Like, I knew David Tennant was gonna pop up somewhere, but it's the new incarnation of the Doctor now. Not like forever, only like for a couple of special episodes, I think. First off, the Doctor regenerated with their outfit changing, which is usually not how it happens. I don't know if we were supposed to pick up on that. Maybe that's a bit unusual. I do like the outfit though. It's very reminiscent of David Tennant's first outfit, but like touch different, which I liked. Of course, we get the classic iconic 10th Doctor lines with I know they see it and it's just like what? Classic, you love it. And I mean, I always love to see David Tennant. I love that guy. Not my favorite Doctor, but not like my all-time favorite Doctor, but one of my favorite Doctors. And one of my favorite actors in general. So it's always great to see David Tennant, and he's fantastic in the role. It's just that I'm still sort of trying to figure out my feelings about bringing back a former actor who already played the Doctor at a point in time, and playing another incarnation of the Doctor. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. We'll have to wait and see what they do with it. And I mean, of course, David Tennant's not going to disappoint. Again, he's fantastic in the role. He's a fantastic actor. It's just like my overall feelings on this basic idea are still a bit up in the air and mixed. Like, I don't really know what to do with that yet. But it definitely made me very excited and very hyped to see what's going to happen next, because we got 10th Doctor, 14th Doctor, we got David Tennant back for some reason, and I want to know why the Doctor has this face and this body again. Just want to know now. So yeah, this episode definitely leaves you with quite the cliffhanger. So I can't wait to see what is going to happen next. But overall, I think this was a solid final episode for Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. She was not my favourite Doctor, but I did grow quite fond of her over the past couple of years. I think I'm overall a lot more positive regarding the whole Jodie Whittaker, Chris Chibnall era than the largest part of the Doctor Who fandom. But then again, I'm trying at the moment, or like in recent years, not to get too much into the Doctor Who fandom for reasons because of this era. But there have been so many fun episodes or new characters, new actors that this era has introduced. So like just on top of my head, like I said, Sacha Dhawan as the Master is a brilliant incarnation that was introduced during this era. Maybe even the best incarnation of the Master. At least it's probably going to be my favorite. I really enjoyed Graham as a companion. It was really nice to see like an older male companion at the Doctor's side. I think the actor did a fantastic job. And there have been a couple of episodes that I really enjoyed, like The Haunting of Villa Diodati, for example, was a lot of fun. The Nikola Tesla episode was one of my favorites as well, or the Witch Hunter one with King James. Like, there have been episodes that I really enjoyed and I still occasionally rewatch when I have the time. Yeah, sure, there have been some downsides as well, like with any era of Doctor Who, really. Like, overall, I'm looking back on this era as not my favorite one, but still one I'm fond of, because it's Doctor Who. I'm enjoying the character of the Doctor. I just enjoy going on time-traveling space adventures with this weird alien and their companions. And for me, that core aspect still works. So I'm still having fun with this show. Yes, I know there are problems. This era isn't perfect. None of the eras are perfect. And we'll see what's going to happen next. But overall, I enjoyed Jodie Whittaker's run as a Doctor. I had so much fun watching her. I got emotional seeing her regenerate, which means that I did form quite quite a bond with the Doctor eventually. So yes, Power of the Doctor. I enjoyed it, had some ups and downs, but overall for me in general, good episode with some really phenomenal character and acting work. It managed to hit the landing, I think, with the specific regeneration bit. And it leaves us with quite a lot to think about and to look forward to. So that's it for my review of The Power of the Doctor. I know it was just me sort of rambling. I just wanted to get my thoughts out. But I hope you didn't mind. Please do tell me down in the comments below what your thoughts are on The Power of the Doctor, or on Jodie Whittaker's and Chris Chibnall's era as a whole. Put your thoughts down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Yes, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done already. I hope I can do this a bit more regularly now that I'm sort of getting used to the new working schedule I have. We'll see. But it's great to be back. It's great to have Doctor Who back, even though now we have to wait again. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see all of you very soon. Goodbye.